Diego, so can we talk a bit about
Yep.
the Baby Cyrus case? Yeah, I want to, because I know you're going to connect the dots now.
So now we need to connect the dots. Now let's get right into it, and let me tell you the Baby Cyrus story. And for those who are interested, we could never cover all the details in a single podcast episode. So all the details, all the gory details, along with the photo evidence and all the documented evidence are posted on our website. People can go there to freedomman.org, and there's a big navigation button that says Baby Cyrus. You click there, and everything's there. And it's just a lot of information to consume. There is one overview they can go through, and then all the details that I'm going to cover, including the videos, are all there. And I'm going to share why this became national and even international, and people will understand then how difficult it is to actually fight these cases. But in short, now that you understand what CPS does and what they're after, then this whole story is going to make a whole lot more sense. And now it's not going to be like, oh, that's impossible. Now it will make sense. In short, my wonderful daughter and my son-in-law gave birth there to my grandson, he's probably never going to live down the name Baby Cyrus. You know, he's a 15, 16 months now, and nobody even calls him Cyrus. He's Baby Cyrus. That's how it goes, right? So he'll be 21 years old, getting married or something. We'll be this. Welcome to Baby Cyrus's wedding. But anyhow, it's my first grandson. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. You think kids are wonderful. You got to have grandkids. They're just the greatest thing that have ever happened. I just can't tell you how much we are in love with Baby Cyrus. And they brought him into this world on May 1st there in 2021. And so back in March of this year, he was 7 months old, and everything was great. My children are very health-minded and health-conscious. My son-in-law was, born and raised into a homeschooling family of 11. Comes from a wonderful Christian family. They're all natural and healthy, and they eat organic foods and raw foods. And he grew up on a farm and all that kind of stuff. And my daughter didn't grow up on a farm, but she was raised to be health conscious. And we don't trust the government, and we don't trust hospitals and big pharma and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to categorize this as those type of people who are anti-vax and pro alternative health, meaning we eat food and we eat healthy and we avoid chemicals and all that kind of, we're those type of people. All right. So yes, we are that. And so she was nursing her child 100%, nursing Baby Cyrus up to 7 months, and he was doing wonderful and he's doing fine. And at 7 months, they decided to start giving him solid foods. And when they decided to give him some solid foods, Baby Cyrus did not take well to it, and he started throwing up. He started having these episodes of vomiting after that first time that they tried to give him solid food. And this is something we now know is called cyclical vomiting episode, and he's been diagnosed with this. And you can look this up yourself. It's something that exists. It happens in babies. It happens even with adolescents and adults even. And it's an issue. Excuse me. It's an issue that doctors don't know what it is. They don't know what causes it. There are certain supplements that can help minimize the effects of it, but they still don't know what causes it. And there's probably multiple effects. Who knows? But it was brand new to us. It was brand new to them. And so they immediately did what every good parent would do, and they started looking for medical advice and medical help. So they're going to every type of medical professional you can imagine, with the exception of going to an allopathic hospital, because we just don't believe in that. They were going to functional medicine. They were going to naturopathic doctors. They were going to voodoo doctors. No, I'm just kidding. They were doing that, but they were going to, chiropractors and naturopaths and the functional medicine there locally in Idaho. And they're doing everything they can to try to find an answer. And nobody could really determine what the answer was. And so what happened was he would go through these violent vomiting episodes where he was literally vomiting 40, 50 times a day for 2 or 3 days. And after that, of course, he would lose a lot of weight, and he would look all skinny. Up to 7 months, he would look like a chunky baby just being nurse fed. And then he would get, he'd get all skinny, and they would rehydrate him with Pedialyte and feed him more, and he would nurse more. And then he would get chunked up again. And then, 5 days later, he'd have another vomiting episode. And it literally was cyclical like this, where he'd go 4 days of vomiting and 4 or 5 days being normal. And then 4 or 5 days of vomiting and 4 or 5 days of being normal. And so every time he would get sick, they would go back to the hospital, or not, the hospital, but to medical professionals, doing everything possible to try to figure out what was going on. Well, at 10 months in, which is 3 months of going through this problem they've been going through, they were at a place called Functional Medicine of Idaho, and the nurse there determined that Baby Cyrus was too dehydrated to just try to rehydrate him with Pedialyte or with just regular liquids. Before she did any additional diagnosis on him, she wanted him to be fully rehydrated. I use the term fully hydrated again in air quotes, whatever the world that means. And so she determined that he needed to get an IV. And the only place in Idaho, allegedly, that could put an IV in an infant was St. Luke's Hospital. Well, my kids did not want to take Baby Cyrus to one of these big allopathic hospitals that have been killing people on COVID, that you cannot trust, that, you know, we know they're subsidized by the government, owned by big pharma, controlled by big business, etc. They didn't want to go there for nothing. But the nurse talked him into it and said, don't worry, you're just going to go. You're going to get Baby Cyrus rehydrated really quickly, and then you guys will be right back here in a couple of hours, and we can, you know, go through our diagnosis of Baby Cyrus, but I don't want to work with him until I know he's fully hydrated. So they reluctantly went to St. Luke's Hospital. They go to St. Luke's Hospital, they get checked in, and everything that they ever feared is exactly what took place. As soon as you get there, they check you in. My son-in-law does not have insurance. He owned his own business at the time, and so everything was private pay, out of pocket. And remember, these are kids. We're talking about kids here. They're both 21 years old, so we're not talking about, you know, old people who are fully established. These are just kids getting their lives started. And so sure enough, they go there and they terrorize them. You are not allowed to leave. You can't leave this place. We have to run all these tests on Baby Cyrus, and you can't leave. So they kept them there overnight. They ran all these tests. And of course, they always threaten you. If you leave, Baby Cyrus is going to die. That's the same garbage they say to everybody all the time. It doesn't matter if you're old or young. If you leave here against our advice, you're going to die. Well, what happened was, as they're going through the intake process, you know, they're asking questions about your background, your history, and are you vaccinated? Are the kids vaccinated? Is the kid vaccinated? And once they learned that Baby Cyrus had received no vaccinations up to that point, the doctor there, Dr. Natasha Erickson, who is suing me right now as we speak, she began to treat them with hostility. And she was very hostile towards them, as most of these doctors in allopathic institutions are. We are God. You do what we say. You take our vaccines, you take our medicines, or I'm going to make you suffer and I'm going to make you pay. Because that's how they treat you nationwide. It's not a St. Luke's, you know, a phenomenon. This is at all allopathic hospitals nationwide, which basically is most hospitals, right? It's the rule and it's not the exception. So they consented to stay overnight. They went on a Tuesday night. They're there on a Wednesday. And Wednesday morning, they get up in the morning and they run all the tests. They can find nothing wrong with Baby Cyrus. They run blood tests. They've run, you know, a urine test. They've done stool tests. They've done every single other test imaginable. And so my son-in-law, Levi, says, hey, all the tests came back fine. Can we go now? And the doctor said, nope, you cannot leave. And if you leave, it's going to be against medical advice, which against medical advice is an actual legal term they use called AMA, against medical advice. And if you leave, I'm going to have to call CPS on you. Well, both my daughter and my son-in-law are terrified of CPS, being two, homeschool families. They're both raised in homeschool families. They know what that means. And so based on the threat of having CPS called on them, they decided to stay an extra day. So they stay an extra day based on that. And so the next day is Thursday. And Levi went back to work. He took off the work on that Tuesday and Wednesday. So he went back to work on Thursday. And sure enough, CPS shows up and does an interview with Marissa, even though they stayed. They stayed anyhow. But what we found out is in most of these hospitals, including St. Luke's, there is a CPS staff worker on site who has an office at all of these hospitals so that they can cherry pick and choose whatever child they're going to be able to take. Remember, they're making millions, perhaps billions of dollars off of these children. I don't know if a local hospital is making that much, but who knows how much money is involved. So it's nothing to put an office in every single hospital with a CPS staff worker there. And they came and interviewed Marissa, asking her all these questions. You know, what's your family life like? Does your husband abuse you? Do you have food in your home? You know, tell us about your work. How come you don't have insurance? They're asking all these intrusive questions. That's none of their business. But they're fishing. That's what they do. They're looking for an excuse. Now, they don't need an excuse, but it's easier for them if they have an excuse.
Right.
That's why they will typically take a child who has some type of condition. Oh, by the way, children with special needs, if you have a child who's Down syndrome or anything like that, they're even more highly targeted than anybody else because they get even more funding for children with special needs. There's additional government funds available if your child has special needs. And all you have to do to make a child special needs, by the way, is to have a psychologist declare them ADD or ADHD. Now they instantly are special needs and they get additional funds from that. So anybody can actually become qualified for special needs. They don't have to be Down syndrome or have some type of genetic disorder in order for them to be qualified for special needs. Now, all that being said, we're now Thursday. They now give Baby Cyrus a barium contrast test, which is a toxic poison they put into his body. And what that is it is a way where they can do a real-time x-ray. So they're putting this barium contrast into his system, put him in an x-ray, and they can watch it in real time pass through his digestive system so they can see if there's any blockage or anything like that in there. But this is a toxic poison that you're putting in a baby's body. And they put that in there, and they're running up a bill. Now, do you have any idea how much it costs to stay in a hospital for one night? And they're forcing him to stay night after night after night after night, knowing that he's private pay. By the way, if you're not private pay and you are paid by insurance, they know exactly how long your insurance is going to pay for you to be there. If your insurance will pay for 2 days, if it'll pay for 4 days, if it'll pay for 7 days, they're going to tell you that you have to be here for 7 days. Otherwise, your child's going to die. But the reality is those 7 days is just how long your insurance will pay for. And that's why they're just going to keep you. And that is legit and real. And if you want to hear the most recent story about that, most conservatives know who Candace Owens is. And Candace Owens had her own CPS threat that just took place with the last baby that she just gave birth to maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And she tells the entire story on her show where she now got red pilled to CPS. She likewise previously thought she believed a lie. CPS exists to protect children from abusive parents or for drug abusing parents. And now she knows it's an entire crock and she's been red pilled. And so she is going to put the entire Candace Owen machine behind exposing CPS. And we're incredibly pleased to know that just happened. You see, CPS is pushing too far with the wrong people because she has a platform. And if you don't have a platform, you're totally hosed. So this was Thursday. Friday comes and they can find nothing wrong with Baby Cyrus. In fact, they said out of their own words that Baby Cyrus's test results show that he's the healthiest kid we've ever seen. Now, it doesn't mean he's actually healthy. It just means based on their tests, they couldn't find anything wrong with him. Now, to their defense, I'll say this. Yeah, it doesn't bother me that you can't find anything wrong with Baby Cyrus because guess what? We know something you guys don't know, and that's you are not God. You hospitals and doctors are not God. You can't find everything wrong with this kid. And so if you don't know what's wrong with him, fine. Let us go home and we'll figure it out and we'll take care of it. And we'll take him to specialists, etc. So they took Baby Cyrus home on March 4th. On March 5th, we had a going away celebration because our family was already planning on leaving and moving to Florida. We're getting out of Idaho. We're moving to Florida. We had a big party with all of our friends celebrating. This is our last week here. Let's have one final get together and say goodbye. And so that's why all these dates can be remembered. And interestingly enough, on that day, which was the 5th, that we had this party, our party was attended by a whole lot of prominent figures in Idaho because we were very well known there. There were, 2 people who were running for governor, including Ammon Bundy, were there who were celebrating with us. Multiple county commissioners for the county of Ada were there. Multiple members of our Idaho state legislature were there because they're personal friends of ours. Others who are running for office were there. And then a whole host of just, prominent members of the community and just personal friends. We had, dozens of people all there. And the only reason I mention all that is not to, to sound impressive, like, ooh, we're connected, but because if we didn't have those connections, if we didn't have a network, none of this would have become public. None of this would have been well known. And Baby Cyrus would still probably be gone to this day. This day. And so that's why it's important for people to make connections with the people as number one, but also number two, it's just to show how horribly difficult it is for these things to rise to prominence because people don't have those type of networks and they're not able to get the information out. So what happened was that weekend, the Dr. Natasha Erickson said, well, I am reluctantly going to let you go, but only if you agree. And if you don't do this, it's against medical advice. And again, we're going to have to call CPS on you, that type of threat. Only if you guys agree to go back to your original nurse and I'll set up the appointment. And she did. She set up the appointment to go back to Functional Medicine of Idaho the following Monday for a checkup with Baby Cyrus. Well, of course, I got no problem with that. Yeah, so we were going anyhow. So yeah, no problem. So they went back that Monday to have a check with the nurse practitioner at Functional Medicine of Idaho, whose name was, I already forgot his name, Aaron something or another. And it's on our website. You can see his picture there. Anyhow, Baby Cyrus lost 35 grams over the weekend. And when he went back to Baby Cyrus lost 35 grams, which is 1.23 ounces for those of us here in America on the imperial system. And so that's not a lot of weight, but it is still a loss of weight. And so all of us want Baby Cyrus to be healthy. And the nurse was like, hey, okay, so Baby Cyrus lost 35 grams. And the reason I mention this is the entire excuse that they used to kidnap him was that he lost 35 grams in the parents' custody. Therefore, they're bad parents. Therefore, the judge ruled it to be child neglect and abuse, the loss of 35 grams. Literally, no joke. So that was on Monday. They then went on Tuesday to another doctor's appointment or a medical professional's appointment, another one on Wednesday. But that nurse practitioner on Monday said, hey, you know what? Why don't you come back this Thursday? And come back this Thursday and we'll check on Baby Cyrus again. So they said, that's fine. So they left on Monday. They went to another medical professional on Tuesday, another medical professional on Wednesday. And Thursday, they came back to that nurse practitioner at Functional Medicine of Idaho. And when they went there, Baby Cyrus still hadn't gotten any better. He was still basically the same. So that nurse practitioner says, you know what? Before we go into the weekend, can you guys just come back tomorrow morning? I want to check him one more time before we go into the weekend. It's just a quick appointment. In fact, it's just a weigh-in. I don't even have to be here. My assistant can weigh him in. I just want to see how he's doing before we go into the weekend. Like, that's fine. No problem. So they had scheduled for Baby Cyrus to come in Friday morning at 10 a.m. When my daughter woke up Friday morning, she was feeling a little under the weather. She had a scratch in her throat. So she decided, you know what, let's just do it next week. And we'll come back on Monday or Tuesday or whenever. So she called Functional Medicine of Idaho to cancel or rather postpone the appointment. Nobody answered the phone. So she just left a message and then she went back to sleep. Now, for those of you who've ever had kids keeping you up all night long, throwing up or just crying or what have you, you know how precious sleeping is and you sleep every hour you can get. So she goes back to sleep. The Functional Medicine of Idaho, someone there got the message. They called her back. When they called her back, she was asleep. So they just left her a message. And because she did not respond, and apparently they called twice, this nurse practitioner, Aaron Dykstra, I couldn't remember his name, but there it is now. He decides for whatever reason, and I will never know, and who knows, we'll never know. I can only assume. But he decides 20 minutes after the canceled appointment to make a referral to CPS. So the appointment was at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 10:20 a.m., he calls CPS and says, hey, we got a case here. Go get this kid. Or at least go check on them is what it's called. But, you know, anybody who refers to CPS knows what happens when you do that. Mm-hmm. You're not just doing a welfare check to see, right. Oh, is your kid okay? Or are you guys back there, you know, shooting up cocaine and heroin and beating them with a hacksaw? They know what's going on. So every last one of them knows. And we know it was exactly 20 minutes later because we have all the medical reports for everything that went down. So that single solitary phone call basically started a chain of events, which ultimately ended that night in violence and abduction. After that phone call, 2 police officers showed up to my house looking for Baby Cyrus because they put my address on the on the intake form instead of their own. And so they came to my house. And of course, the police always lie. Sorry, cops. I would love to say that you always tell the truth if you actually did. So if you want me to defend you for telling the truth, start telling the truth. Otherwise, I'm going to tell people the truth, which is that you always lie in all your police reports. And we have so many multiple documented cases of this happening in the whole country. And Florida, again, is no exception to that rule. I wish we were. But Idaho is one of the worst offenders. And the reason why Idaho is one of the worst offenders is because there's no real crime in Idaho. And so when you don't have crime and you don't have a reason for you to exist, then what do you have to do? The police over there have to invent crap in order to justify their existence. I mean, it's a joke in Idaho, but it's only a joke because it's actually true that if a 70-year-old man, you know, does a rolling stop, 5 cops will roll up on him with guns drawn to check why he's doing that, you know, because you see it all the time there. But anyhow, these 2, you know, detectives come to my house. I film them in the process of doing so, and they lie in their police report stating that Baby Cyrus was in the house. They knew he was there, and I refused to let them get access to check on his welfare. It was only later they try to change their story because they later find out that no, Baby Cyrus is not there. He doesn't live there, and it's not even the house where Baby Cyrus stays. It's not even his house. It's not even Marissa and Levi's house. But cops always lie. They tell multiple lies. It's all demonstrated in their reports. They went there. They found that Baby Cyrus wasn't there. So they left, got a warrant to break into my house. But what they did instead of breaking in because the lights were off, et cetera, is they just put a couple of police officers outside the house to watch and to keep tabs on the house. Well, we had already left because we were going to a friend's house that night who's a personal friend of the family. and we were having our going away dinner with him, who was a personal friend of the family. And Marissa had got some rest, and we had decided, all right, we're going to go and have this dinner with him, because the following Tuesday, this is a Friday night, the following Tuesday, brother, the moving trucks were pulling up to our house, and we're out, we're gone. Yep. We're going to take a 5-day journey down to Florida. And so anybody who's ever moved across town, you know how logistically complicated it is. Well, we were moving across the country, not even from one end to the other, from one extreme. We were from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the tip of the Southeast. And it's a long trip. So at the time, all of our houses were already boxed up. Everything was in boxes. We were all living out of our luggages. Each of us had our individual luggage, and we were all sleeping on air mattresses. And this is, the logistical situation of what we were dealing with at that particular moment. So we go to our friend's house, who's on the other side of town, and we're having a good dinner over there. This is a guy who owns a restaurant. Him and his wife are incredible cooks, and we're just talking about that whole day in the trip. And we were talking to him, because he's also an ex-police officer and ex-Marine, about the fact that police showed up to my house that day. They were looking for Baby Cyrus. What do you think about this? And he's like, man, that's crazy. That never happened in my day, and on and on and on. Well, the police went to the extreme of doing an illegal cell phone ping through my son-in-law's cell phone provider. It is illegal. It's already been challenged at the Supreme Court level. The precedence already exists that it is illegal. We are going to sue them for it. They're already being sued on other charges, but we're going to sue them for that as well. But even though it's illegal, police still do it. And the reason why they do is because they can. And this is not me acting paranoid. We know for a fact they did this because they said so in the police report. They did a police ping. It shows us there on the police report. They found Levi's truck, and they waited for hours, literally, for us to leave our friend's house after dinner so they could follow him. And once they followed him that night, we left. The police followed him. They pulled into a gas station, because they called me, said, Dad, there was some cops following us. I said, pull into that gas station. That you guys are there right there, so it's all lit up, and so everything could be, bright lights. So they pulled into that gas station, and I turned around to go meet them over there as well. And from there, everything can be seen on video, because my daughter had the frame of mind to start filming, and she didn't just film; she live streamed on Facebook everything that happened from that moment. So you can see, and I'll just describe it. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch the video. The video didn't work well when I tried to play it at the meeting there last week, because we had some technical hiccups. However, anybody can watch it on our website, and you can see at that moment where multiple things take place. The first thing is they pull my son-in-law out of the truck. They put him in handcuffs, throw him up against the truck, physically abuse him. They're not arresting him. He was not under arrest. They're not even claiming to detain him, but they're just physically assaulting him. Why? Because they can. They're saying that then they pulled my other daughter, who is not Baby Cyrus's mother, rip her out of the truck through the window, yanking her arms, or physically assaulting her. And they say that we are arresting you. They say you are under arrest for, what's the term they use, for criminal endangerment of a child, or whatever the actual term is. And I'm forgetting again right now. Hey, I'm a grandpa, so I can have senior moments, right? But anyhow, they rip her out, put her in cuffs, and throw her in the back of a squad car. And all of this is illegal. You can't just arrest anybody without evidence, without charges. So we're going to sue them as well for false arrest. Good. And they're going to get the sock sued off of them. However, it's Idaho, it's Ada County. Nothing's going to happen. That's just the nature of the beast. There's no justice there. It will have to go to the Supreme Court in order for there to be justice. And so, again, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes money, etc. But we're going to go through that process. Nevertheless, everything I'm saying, by the way, you can watch it. You can watch it with your own two eyes. It's not me just saying this. They then go to Marissa. They open the door. They see her holding Baby Cyrus there. It's a freezing cold night. He's very cold. And so, March in Idaho is still very cold. It hasn't warmed up yet. And so they talk to Marissa. They talk to Baby Cyrus, or not to Baby Cyrus. They talk to Marissa while she's holding Baby Cyrus, and they recognize, hey, this is the kid we're going to kidnap. So they have to wait for other people to come. And so they wait for the detectives to come. And once the detectives come, they lie in order to get Marissa out of the truck so they can get her into the ambulance. Why? Because I'm there. My two sons are there. And we have blasted this out to all the people who are in the People's Rights Network, which is that network that Ammon Bundy founded, where people basically commit to stand for your freedom and help you defend your freedom if your rights are ever being violated. And even though this is like almost midnight, you know, we had a half a dozen or more people show up on the spot, on scene. My wife calls our friends who are attorneys. They show up on the scene. So we have attorneys on site, and the police refuse to let my family talk to their attorneys, which is illegal. They then tell Marissa, we just need to get you out of here so we can get you into the ambulance so that your, you know, baby Cyrus could be checked. We just want to take him to the hospital. She made them promise that she would never be separated from him. And they promised on 3 occasions, and it's all on film, you will not be separated from baby Cyrus and you can be with him the whole time. Well, you have to understand, if the child is not separated from the parent, they don't get paid ever. Because it's not kidnap if the mom is still there. It's only kidnap if they can take the child away from you. So their goal is to take that child away from the baby. As soon as they, or take the child away from the mother, as soon as they got Marissa, my daughter, in the ambulance, the whole story changed. Give us your kid or you will be arrested. Give us your child or we're going to take you to jail tonight. We have declared your child to be in imminent danger, so therefore we're taking him from you. And if you don't give him up, further harm will come to your child. Give us your child so no further harm comes to him and you don't have to go to jail. And this arrogant sociopath detective, whose name and picture and badge number you can see on our website, Detective Fuller and Detective Hansen is the other one, literally said, give the child to the EMT and you can go on your merry way. Can you imagine what a sociopathic mind he has to say that to a mother in the process at the moment you're kidnapping your child?
Wow.
Now, we did a survey, just for all mothers out there listening. We did a survey and we asked, in a hypothetical situation where a gun is held to your head and you have a choice to either let your child be taken from you and kidnapped from you or allow yourself to be raped in order to protect your child, which one would you choose? 100% of all women, 100%, not one defector, said they would rather sacrifice their own body and suffer the horror of rape than to allow their child to be kidnapped and taken from them. 100% of it. What that means is, to a mother, the crime and suffering of rape is worse than is not as bad as the crime and suffering of kidnap. A woman feels kidnap is the worst thing that could ever happen to her. Can you imagine a police officer raping a woman, which there's plenty of evidence that police officers do it all the time. We got plenty of articles on our website demonstrating that. A police officer raping a woman, and in the process of him raping her, she fights back and he says, oh, now you're under arrest for resisting and obstructing me while I'm raping you. Well, in this case, it's worse what happened to my daughter, because they actually arrested my daughter for resisting and obstructing because she refused to hand over the baby to the police officer. It's like a police officer saying, if you won't pull down your own pants to help me get this over with faster, then I'm going to arrest you for resisting and obstructing. That's what happened.
Yep.
Her case, her criminal case for resisting and obstructing, is still going on as we speak. As we speak. There is another hearing on November 7th for her case. Those police officers want to put her in prison for resisting and obstructing them, for not handing baby Cyrus over. You can watch the entire video for yourself, even where they arrest her and then grope her and molest her and put their hands up her shirt and down her pants and around her waist and everything. You can see all of it for yourself. So both of my daughters were arrested that night. I had to watch. They threatened to shoot me if I was going to do anything. My daughter probably saved my life that night, brother, because if you know anything about how cops work, there were 5 police officers with their hands on their guns threatening to shoot me if I made a move. Well, we're all men. I'm a Second Amendment believer. Thank God I didn't have a firearm on me that night, because I always carry, but that night I didn't. You know why? Because all of my firearms were all locked up in boxes ready for the trip to Florida. But had I made a move to try to stop anybody from taking baby Cyrus away, they just would have shot me, killed me dead, would have all lied and backed one another up. We know how cops operate. They would have said, he was going for our gun and we had to shoot him. And they would have filled me full of 60 holes. Yep. And then my children would have had to have then mourned the loss of their father and the kidnap of baby Cyrus all in one, because that's how it works and that's how it goes down. So I had to watch as my 2 daughters, who I, as a father, have been given my whole life to protect them and to defend them, I had to watch as they were both assaulted before my very eyes, then arrested and hauled away. And as my grandson was kidnapped before my very eyes, and I was powerless to do anything about it.
I can
watched it with my
only
own 2 eyes.
imagine.
It is a fury and a suffering and a pain like I could not even describe. But we had to go through it. My son-in-law had to suffer likewise. He didn't get to see any of it because he was cuffed and in the back of a squad car sitting, just praying that God would have mercy on the night's events. And so this is all what went down. This all went down. They stole Baby Cyrus, kidnapped him, took him away under the auspices of being imminent danger, because this is the terminology they use in most states. In imminent danger, because this imminent danger clause is what gives a police officer the permission to take a baby away from its parents. However, imminent danger means 2 things. Number 1, that the child is about to die. They are at the point of death, imminent danger. And if you do not remove that child away from their parents, then they are probably going to die like immediately, within moments. So if you have parents who are beating their kid or something like this, we got to go in there and take that child and take them away. Or the child is, suffering, he's sickly, and he's all emaciated, and he's about to die within minutes if you don't get him to a hospital. That's imminent danger. And quite frankly, I think most people probably would agree that if a child is legitimately in imminent danger, get him to a hospital, get him somewhere, get him away from whoever it is who's putting him in danger. And that is the second inference in the law, is that not only is the child in imminent danger, but it was the parents who put him in imminent danger. Therefore, he must be separated. If it's simply medical danger, there's no reason to separate the child from the parent.
No.
Right? Let the parents go with you to the hospital. So imminent danger is what they use to steal the baby and to take him away. However, there's no evidence provided for it, and they admitted that the child was not in imminent danger because the medical records show that when they took Baby Cyrus, that they had already found a foster family to put Baby Cyrus in the custody of the foster family within minutes. They were taking the Baby Cyrus to the hospital to fill out the paperwork, and then they're going to take him to the foster family. Well, the only reason they didn't do that is because when I went to the police station, to the sheriff's department, rather, to bail my 2 daughters out of jail, our good friend Ammon Bundy, who many of you guys know him as a patriot and a great lover of freedom and the Constitution, lived about an hour away from us, and he drove an hour from his home in Emmett, Idaho, to where we were in Meridian, Idaho, which is basically a suburb of Boise. And he went out there and had about a half a dozen other people protesting. And because Ammon Bundy showed up and he's protesting out there, they determined that it was dangerous. Ammon Bundy is out front. So because protesters showed up, it's too dangerous to take the child to foster care. So let's just move him to the other hospital. So the singular act of Ammon Bundy showing up that night protected Baby Cyrus in ways we can't imagine, because if he would have been in the foster care system immediately, we probably would have lost him forever. And so so they are admitting, by the way, that he wasn't in imminent danger, because if he's in imminent danger, how do you put him in the foster care family? He's at the point of death. Let's go put him with some strangers who aren't doctors. It's a total lie. Once Baby Cyrus showed up at the hospital, then he was reviewed by a doctor, a full-fledged doctor who reviewed him and who said in her medical report, this is a completely healthy child with no interventions, and there are no life-threatening issues, which is imminent danger, noted. He's totally fine. He's a perfectly healthy baby. She put that not only in the medical reports, but we have body cam footage of her saying it verbally. So we don't only have the records, but we have the body cam footage of her saying it verbally. This is a healthy child. So the CPS knew that he was healthy and not in imminent danger. The police officers knew he was healthy and not in imminent danger because they told them so. And the hospital knew he was healthy and not in imminent danger, meaning all the players who were responsible for kidnapping Baby Cyrus all knew he was not in imminent danger, but they kidnapped him anyway. Gee, I wonder why.
Wow. So how did you get him back?
So that night, so how we got him back, and this is the other part of the miraculous story. He is now gone. We are suffering in ways that I cannot describe in the English language or in any other language. It's just for you, if you're any parent listening, imagine not only having your child kidnapped, but you watching it and being unable to do anything about it at the moment that it took place, or suffer your own death. And I wouldn't mind sacrificing my life if I knew I would have saved him. Literally, I can say that wholeheartedly, and I don't think I'm a special person for saying that. I think both of you would say the same thing.
Mhm.
I think any parent, even non-Christian parents, because there's just something innate within us as parents that we will sacrifice our lives for our children or our grandchildren. Unquestionably, if I knew I could have saved baby Cyrus and he would have never been kidnapped, but I would have lost my life in the process, I'd have done it. And I think most parents probably would as well. But on the contrary, I knew I would have lost my life that night,
Mhm.
and nobody would have been able to advocate to get baby Cyrus back anyway. And the reason I think my daughter saved my life that night is because I'm a pretty controlled man, but I'm not 100% certain that at that moment when they were ripping my daughter out of the car, out of the truck, out of the windows, that I was 100% controlled. You can hear me screaming in the video. I'm yelling. They're pulling my daughter out. They're physically abusing and assaulting her. She looks up and she sees me and she sees all this going down. And thank God my daughter was in her right mind. And she looks up and she says, and you can watch this in the video as well. She goes, "Dad, it's okay. It's okay." Man, I'm getting a little emotional now. It's hard to relive the experience, man. It's really hard. Just watch the video for yourself and imagine it being your kids. It's just really... It's not just angering, it's painful. When she said that, I realized, okay, it's going to be okay. And I calmed down and I didn't do anything. And those cops, those filthy cops with their hands on their pistols ready to shoot me, he told me with his own mouth, he said, "Do you want to know why we're here? Because they know who we are." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're here. We're here because of you." And he was referencing me personally and also the People's Rights Network, which they hate. They hate us because we shut them down during COVID. And they were itching for an opportunity to kill one of us. And if you don't think cops itch for that opportunity, you just are not informed enough.
Wow.
And so what happened was we went home that night after we got both of my daughters out of jail. And Ammon at that moment, and you can watch this in the video as well, was illegally arrested for trespassing. I say illegally arrested because in order to be trespassed anywhere in this country, you have to be on private property, and the private property owner himself has to tell you to leave, and then you have to refuse to leave. If you refuse to leave private property, the owner can then trespass you, and then they have law enforcement take you off their property. And if that's how it goes down, then that's fine. We all agree with that. That's what trespass is. That's how it should be. But a police officer can't, on his own, on private property, walk up to you and just arrest you and say, "You're under arrest for trespassing." You can't do that. And so, and you can't trespass somebody on public property either. Well, but police officers do it all the time. The two things they love to use, because it's like carte blanche, we can arrest anybody for one, resisting an obstruction, or trespassing. And so anytime they want to arrest anybody, those are the two excuses that they use. And so you can watch in the video where without even telling Ammon to leave, and earlier in the video, if you watch the whole thing, they tell him to move because they're in basically the ambulance bay where the ambulance come in. They say, "Hey, you need to move and go over there." And so at one point in time, they moved and then they come back over here, but they never tell them that you have to leave or we're going to trespass you. That never happened once. And that's what's required by law. What you see in the video is Ammon arguing with police officers for violating rights, etc. And then another cop just walks up to him, grabs him by the arms and arrests him and says, he doesn't even say anything. He doesn't even say, "Hey, get out of here." He just walks up and arrests him. You watch it for yourself.
Wow.
So that's totally illegal. However, because he got arrested, Ammon Bundy being a well-known international practical folk hero, one, had he been arrested just being who he is, it would have become big news. However, it became bigger news because he is currently running for governor of the state of Idaho. So when you have a gubernatorial candidate who's a prominent member of the community get arrested, it becomes news overnight. So the news overnight is Ammon Bundy gets arrested because he was protesting the medical kidnap of a child. So it went everywhere. And while it went everywhere, I went home that night and we have a list of thousands of people on our Freedom Man list that I sent out the entire story to everybody. We got home about 3 a.m. I wrote out the entire thing, took pictures, sent it out to everybody. I went through my personal contact list on my cell phone of, several hundred people that we knew, including congressmen, including, legislators, including people running for office, including, members of government at different levels, et cetera, et cetera. and people who are connected and very visible for different organizations throughout the state. We sent it out to all of them, a personal message. I literally sent, I don't know, a couple of hundred messages one by one. I copied and pasted, but there's no mass messaging on text, as you know. So I had to copy and paste and send. It took, a few hours. I didn't go to bed till 7 or 8 in the morning, hours sending all these things out. Wow. Ammon sent it out to his list. He had a lot, several hundred people on his list, thousands even. And then other people who are friends who have lists of thousands of their own. So that morning, everybody wakes up and learns, oh my goodness, Diego's grandson was kidnapped. So I'm very visible there in Idaho. People knew who I was. And so this makes a big difference as well, because when you say, hey, there was a baby who was kidnapped by CPS, people don't know who they are. They don't know if they can trust the story. They don't know, are they drug abusers? They don't know anything, but people knew me personally, and my son-in-law and daughter, they knew them personally because they're always at our events and they know these kids, and they're, it's a wonderful, beautiful Christian family. They know they know us personally. So when they know you personally, it's different than just a random story.
Right.
So because people knew us, brother, the next morning, 400 people showed up to protest at that hospital.
Wow.
And they were out there protesting, and it became huge news. And when people see, if people see 5 people protesting, nobody cares. But when people see 400 people protesting, they go, oh, this is legitimate. This is real. This is actual abuse. This is actual tyranny. This is actual government overreach. And then the next day, we started getting medical reports and medical records showing how they broke the law. We spent all night long reading, the Idaho statutes, and we posted on our website, 5 laws that they broke, that the police broke, and everything. We posted all this stuff. And so every day I started hosting a press conference, and the press starts coming out. They're filming us. We're posting it everywhere. And all of a sudden, people who work at St. Luke's are starting to turn against St. Luke's because they're seeing how this is wrong. This is wrong. What you guys are doing here is wrong. And so we were winning everybody over. And then by Monday morning, we had the medical reports that they tried to hide from us, but they can't legally do so. So then we showed that the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare and the police officers and the hospital all knew Baby Cyrus was not in imminent danger. It was all a lie. So we published all that information. I hold a press conference for it. And every single day from that Saturday, which is the first day, all the way through the following Thursday, we're having protests in front of the hospital, daily protests from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's a presence in front of the hospital every single day, nonstop.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Then people find out about it. I have a friend, Rick Green, who, as you guys know, is in charge and the founder of Patriot Academy, and also very many other. He has a great podcast, lots of followers there. He's connected with David Barton and Wall Builders.
Yes.
He publishes it to his list. He brings me on his show, and we do a show there, and then people find out about it there. People start telling other people in their churches about it. Stu Peters found out about it. We went on his show, and he had never really knew the history of CPS either. So he sees it, and it becomes a passion of his, and he commissions his film crew to make a documentary about it, and they uncovered everything there is to know, and they used the story of Baby Cyrus as a catalyst. But a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months now, they published a documentary called These Little Ones, where they have groundbreaking documentary which features the story of Baby Cyrus, and they totally lift the lid off of CPS and the whole story here. Everybody should watch it. It's a 1-hour documentary. It will blow your mind to see what they uncover and all the people that they get a chance to interview there. But in the process, it goes on Stu Peters' show. Like I said, I ended up doing over 50 interviews. Because of that, this became nationwide. People learned about it through the Ammon Bundy story. They learned about it internationally. And we had thousands of people sending in emails every single day to the hospitals, to the police department, to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Thousands of phone calls being made every single day to the hospital. It's the most prominent news story of the day. While we're having those daily press conferences, we had over a half a dozen legislators, actual legislators, show up and speak at our press conferences. We had the lieutenant governor of the state of Idaho, who is number 2 in charge behind the governor. The governor hates my guts because I've been exposing all of his tyranny for the last couple of years. But the lieutenant governor doesn't hate my guts, and she is liberty-minded, and she goes out there and she makes a plea on behalf of Baby Cyrus. So there's a lot of prominent people who are making pleas on behalf of Baby Cyrus. And so the whole community is turning against St. Luke's. The whole community is turning against the police department. And it's a huge, huge black eye that they're getting. And they're telling us they can't even get their work done because what happens when you wake up in the morning, you got 5,000 emails you get to go through.
Right.
You've tied up all of their phone lines. People can't make phone calls. Baby Cyrus turned into a hot potato that they want to get rid of. So after a few days, the hospital gets rid of Baby Cyrus and they hold him in the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. So we move our protest to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and we start holding our protest over there on a daily basis. And Wednesday comes, and we've got all of these legal work that our lawyers are trying to do as well. There's so many details that I can't get into, but to make a long story short, because we made this the number one issue in the state of Idaho, and it was the number one issue for a week. It was the news of the day. It was national news. It was literally international news. It was all over the internet. It was all over social media. We were shutting down their phone lines. We were shutting down their email servers, and literally they were looking awful. Everything we're talking about right now, we're exposing on a daily basis. We expose how these guys were criminals. We exposed the CPS child trafficking ring that I didn't know about, that we started learning about very quickly. And I started exposing it. And because I was exposing it, that's why they're saying that I defamed them. Yep. They're saying, you said that we're part of a child trafficking ring. I said, yes, I did say that because it's true. And I'm going to keep saying it. And, well, you're defaming us. And so that's why they're suing me. And that lawsuit is going on now. It'll take years for this. In fact, I just got yesterday the dates for the lawsuit, and the court date is going to be in July of next year. Wow. So in July of 2023 is when we'll have it. I will more than likely lose because there's no justice in Ada County. Then we'll appeal it, and the appeal will take another 1 to 2 years. And it's just going to go on forever because they have the money to make it go on forever until the average person like me just folds and says, I quit. I can't afford it. I can't afford the time. I can't afford the energy. I can't afford to just forget about it. It's going to be cheaper for me just to pay than it is to go on and continue to do this. And so that's what they're looking forward to doing. And we know for a fact that their attorneys on their side said that they're going to sue me and Ammon in order to shut us down and to bankrupt us so that nobody ever challenges them ever again.
So the takeaways I'm hearing is we need to band together, right? We need to make noise, right? And we need to say, no, you're going to back up because we're not accepting what's happening here.
So your takeaways are 100% correct. I can't tell you how valuable and critical this network of people called People's Rights is. This was something that Ammon Bundy founded at the beginning of COVID when he realized people's rights are being taken away from him. And he told me personally that he said that he had a revelation when people came out to defend him and his family out in Las Vegas when the government was trying to steal his father's property. And they came out there. And for those who don't know the story, look it up. We can't tell you the whole story. It's probably the most egregious story in modern times in terms of government overreach against a family. And Ammon Bundy's story is the only case where a family fought back against the federal government and lived to tell the tale. The other ones are like Ruby Ridge and Waco, Texas, etc., where everybody gets killed in the process and the government gets off scot-free. In Ammon's case, the government didn't get off scot-free for one single solitary reason. It was because social media existed then, and they started showing on social media what the police were doing to them, and people became enraged. And 3,000 American patriots showed up and stood between the Bundys and the police. When I say the police, it was 5 agencies. So it wasn't like the local cops. You had the FBI, you had the BLM, which is not Black Lives Matter. It's a Bureau of Land Management, who shouldn't be a policing agency, by the way, shouldn't have weapons, but whatever. And then there was the local sheriff, local cops, etc. All these police agencies came out, like 215 of them, I think there were, against a Mormon family who are a bunch of pacifists who have owned this land for over 180 years. And they came out there with snipers and helicopters, shooting all their cattle from helicopters. It was a horrible situation, but because 3,000 Americans showed up in between the family and the cops took off. And Ammon realized that's the militia. This is the militia of the Second Amendment that nobody understands what it is. That's what it is. It's just the people. The people is the militia standing up for our own rights. And he realized when COVID happened that we don't have any people aren't willing to stand up for one another's rights. And what we all learned, and the Baby Cyrus story is a perfect story, is that our government officials at all levels, from the executive, judicial, and legislative branch, nobody cares about the rule of law. Your legislators don't care about it. The judges don't care about it. They always are ruling against the law all the time and changing it on a whim from the bench if they want to. And law enforcement doesn't care. And I'm sorry, I want to love law enforcement. I have family members who are law enforcement. I stand up for law enforcement as an institution. But unfortunately, it has become so corrupted that the every time we see the violation of people's rights, it's law enforcement doing it, and they're getting away with it. So until they start policing themselves and until they start standing up and saying, hey, what we're doing is wrong, we shouldn't do this anymore, then I'm sorry that you guys are going to be treated as guilty until proven innocent because you give us no other reason to treat you any other way. But these cops are the ones who are coming out here and they are violating our rights and they don't care about the law. They broke 5 different laws and 4 different constitutional amendments and laws at the highest level of the United States Constitution just in the Baby Cyrus case. And guess what? They do it because they get away with it. So if nobody cares about the rule of law anymore, how is there any justice? How can there be any justice? And Ammon said he came to the realization that the only way we'll have justice is if the people stand for one another's rights. It's the only way. Yep. So he created this thing called People's Rights. You can look him up at peoplesrights.org. And all it is a network. Basically, what he did is he personally, out of his own pocket, financed a communication system. And it's a communication system that works via text and email where everybody joins the network. And when you join the network, you get access to this communication system so that if your rights, RC, are being violated in a moment, you can hit a button on your phone. It sends a message out to all the people that, because you're part of this network, you should have been going to monthly meetings and knowing one another so people know you know people, you know who you are, you know your neighbors. And at that moment, people can show up to stand between you and the people who are violating your rights. If that network didn't exist, Baby Cyrus wouldn't be here with us today.
Wow.
It's a blessing he is, Diego. And so to wrap up here, the work that you guys are doing, the work that Ammon is doing overall, how again can people find you? How can they contact you? What should they be looking for?
So at this point, we're asking people just go to our website, freedomman.org. Freedom Man with 2 M's there. Freedom, M at the end, man, M at the beginning. freedomman.org. And just subscribe. If they'll go there and subscribe, we will keep people aware of everything we're doing. At this moment, we are in the process of still fighting my daughter's case and fighting my case now. So she is still, they want to put her in jail for a year. That's what they're trying to do. And the cops already showed up and already had, multiple hearings about it, and they lie and on and on and on. Anyhow, we can go on and talk about that some other time. But they can go there. We're still fighting that case, and we're still fighting the case I'm working on. But as we're working through that, we are shortly in order here trying to put together this organization called PACT, the People Against Child Trafficking. Our goal is here in Florida. We need to expand our footprint here in Florida so that good people like you and everybody else who are freedom-minded will learn what the process is of CPS and will all be against it. And we can pass laws at the local level here in Florida to end this so that Governor DeSantis knows, the Florida legislature knows, and we can put an end to this. And the way to put an end to it is very simple. The first and most simple thing we need to do is, as a state, we need to reject all federal funding to CPS, period, end of sentence. As long as there is an incentive, the state of Florida is now incentivized towards tyranny and corruption, period. We need to end that. That's the number one thing we can do to take it from, 100 down to maybe single digits. And I'm talking like percentage wise. And then we can take further steps to eliminate it altogether. However, once we have a system set up where we can do that legislatively, we can put the legislation together, we can have a system where we can inform legislators. We want what we do here in Florida to be a template so that all other 49 states can take local people in each of those states so they do the same thing. And one by one, we knock these down like dominoes so that in our lifetime, brother, we can say, and sister, we can say that we saw government subsidized child trafficking finally come to an end in America.
Amen.
Diego Rodriguez, Freedom Man Press, fellow brother in Christ. Thank you for standing in the gap, and thank you for all the work that you do. Guys, thank you for joining us for this episode of Sherloc's Roundtable. We will continue to bring you what's most important each and every episode. Thank you guys for joining us.